It honestly feels like being a vampire is kind of like a pyramid scheme. Like it actually does not solve what you want.
You know what the problem is? Having a perfect body does not actually strip the people of their actual humanity.
What's inside?
Like that's actually the problem.
Yes.
It's like no matter the state of this person, the relationships are always going to be messy because they still have human emotion.
Exactly.
Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther.
And I'm Adrian.
We just finished watching Interview with the Vampire, Season 1, Episode 4.
Listen, man, I can already tell Claudia is going to be my favorite character. I feel like I know she's going to be a troublemaker. I don't think I care. This episode was kind of feeling like it's like a common understanding that like a kid is not going to like save a marriage, you know? And Claudia kind of names that, where she was like, every now and then she would see Louis and Lestat argue and then she would step in and then crack a joke. Right. Mm-hmm. Like they literally show her sitting in between them in the theater, making them kind of both laugh at what they're seeing on the screen. For the bulk of the episode, things were happy on the surface, but they never resolved anything from what went down in the previous episode.
Mm-hmm. They both kind of used Claudia as a way to fill whatever gap was not being filled from each other.
Yeah.
Like Louis is using Claudia. It's like making himself feel better about himself, because he feels like he did this one good thing by saving her life, which was a big part of the issue he was having in the prior episode, was just trying to convince himself that he could still be a good person while being this monster. So she's obviously feeling that gap. But then you also see that she's also feeling this gap that's been left by his lack of family and community and connection. And so that's kind of what she is for him. There was pieces of that he just couldn't really get from Lestat because Lestat didn't understand that need. And so he's using Claudia to do that. And for Lestat, you can see that he is using Claudia as like what he thought he would get from Louis but didn't. Like this companion that sees humanity in the same way as he does. Inconsequential and being able to just sort of revel in their superiority together. And you can see him trying to sort of use Claudia for that. Because they're just so focused on doing that, they don't think intentionally about allowing her to define this new experience for herself, number one. But also they just don't think about what they have done to her, which is that they have trapped her in a child's body for the rest of eternity.
Right. Claudia was ready to go in that fire. She made her peace with the situations, as tragic as that is. And there was no agency that she had in the decision in her change. I like what Jacob Anderson said in the podcast episode. Louis kind of does stuff like pretty impulsively, like very emotion influence in a lot of his decisions. Like even running into the fire, like yes, he quote unquote saved a life, but like the impulsive nature of it was something because he was feeling internally conflicted about what he was going through. It had nothing really to do about let me save Claudia because it is the right thing to do. He's going to that fire to save Claudia because it'll make him feel better. And I think that's kind of the difference.
I think it's like a combination. The reason why it makes him feel better is because he believes it's the right thing to do. This is the thing about vampirism in general. All vampires, every vampire that has ever been created, any fictional vampire character that we've ever known, deals with this like inner turmoil of being like sort of damned to this existence.
Yeah.
Even if there are like pros to it about like the power and the wealth, whatever, there is just like an innate loneliness to it. And then what do all vampires do in order to cure this loneliness? They go and they take somebody else, which in turn damns them to that same type of loneliness and isolation.
Yeah.
Like that's just all that this is. It's Louis feeling lonely and guilty and full of shame. And so without thinking about the fact that the reason why you feel like this is because somebody did to you what you're about to do to her.
Right.
Like in the same way that Lestat was looking for companionship. And so then what did he do? He pulled you into this hell of a life with him. Now you're doing the exact same thing to Claudia for essentially essentially the exact same reason.
Yeah, and I think the inner turmoil for Louis is, I think he has regret in the fact that he turned to a vampire. I don't think he would be fully sold in the idea of turning fully back human either. I think there are pros and cons that he's seeing from both sides, and now he's just kind of like conflicted in general. And I think what he's trying to look for in Claudia, and I'm saying it in like a bit of a funny way, but like, can I have someone to experience this misery with me so that I'm not by myself?
It's just so naive of Louis and Lestat to think that that little bubble that they were in, that little honeymoon phase of happiness that they were in, was going to last.
Yeah.
Because her experience of being a vampire is never going to be the same as theirs, because what they do to make up for what they have lost is they live their lives. They be outside. Okay. That's kind of like, they are like, I am going to partake in all of the things, like money, partying, all of these things. Like, that's kind of how they cope, essentially, with like everything that they have lost. And that's literally not possible for her because of the phase of life that you guys have trapped her in.
Right.
Like, that was always going to be a problem, even if it didn't happen in like some murderous or violent way. It was always at some point going to be a thing. They just didn't see it somehow.
Yeah, and it's also like her temperament almost feels like it's kind of like permanently there also. When Louise like, yo, like, why can't she like control herself? And the stats like, well, like, we turned her when her metabolism was like extremely high. So she's like going to get hungry a lot quicker than the two of them are. Like, that in of itself is an issue that I don't think y'all thought through, because you turned her at a very pivotal time, like biologically, that's just not where she was. It seems as though, at least for like Louis' perspective, he's like in his 30s. So generally speaking, you were at an age where like you can comfortably find partners without any sort of issue. The same thing with Lestat. That is not something that Claudia can really go through. We saw that in this episode where she had to like convince you, like, no, actually I'm 19. But biologically, again, like, she is stuck in this body that will put a cap on how, like, what kind of relationships she can have. A lot of it just kind of came down to like, you did not think about the agency of this poor girl, really. Like, at any point throughout this episode, it didn't really seem like it. And it felt like she was noticing the insecurities that Louis and Lestat were having, and then Claudia had to make the decision, like, let me try to fill that void.
Yeah, I definitely think she was picking up on the dynamic that I am kind of the glue that's holding this thing together.
Yes.
I definitely think she was aware of that. Lots of children, when their parents divorce, think it's their fault because they have this like subconscious knowledge of the fact that like, I'm the thing, like, I'm the reason why we're even still holding it together as much as we are right now. Also, Lestat, why did he take her? I thought that was so weird. You know what it's like? It's like Poor Things.
Yes. I mean, yeah, no, kind of, yeah.
It's almost exactly like that. It like unlocked this whole other part of herself, but then with no guidance on now what to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand Lestat, because he seemed very aware of the fact that he was introducing her to something that was going to be pivotal. He seemed aware of that. I'm trying to understand his motive.
The kind of recklessness that he has, he feels like there's like a novelty to that because he's a vampire. I think he did think it through and then just said, like, well, who cares? We can do whatever we want. I think that sort of I don't care attitude, I think he thinks that is the healthiest way for vampires to live. To live consequence carefree. I think we're just looking at it from Louis' perspective because we're still human. I don't know how else to put it.
The big part of that encounter was the sensuality of it.
Yes.
And it feels like he definitely knew that. And on some level, I just think you also have to know what, like, you know that when you turned her, she was 14 years old. And you know that 14, 15, 16, like that whole era of your life is when you just naturally start to become more aware of that part of yourself. Mm-hmm. You also know that she's been sheltered away from the world. He even says to her in that moment, "You're too sheltered."
Yeah.
it's like he knows what he's doing. He knows he's revealing this whole other part of the human experience to her. And he understands that it's going to unlock her own sensual desire. But where's the follow-up? It's like, it's hard to call it grooming because it's not like he wants her for himself.
I think he does. Not in a sexual way, but I think he does. I think he is trying to get Claudia to see her internal desires to be as carefree as he sees it, because he will never get that with Louis. I don't think Lestat wants those desires from Claudia. I think that is a very parental sort of dynamic that they have. But I think the companionship that he thought that they could bond over, I felt some competition in this episode between Louis and Lestat of like, who can win Claudia over in terms of what kind of vampire she's going to be. Every interaction that they have feels like they're trying to teach her about the values that she should have as a vampire. Like that scene when Louis and Claudia are on that boat, he's teaching her about what it means to like love someone. Claudia asks him about like, well, what about like two men? And he's like, well, you know, love is love, essentially. And then he teaches him about like the elders thing of like certain things we just don't ask elders, which I felt like was very racialized. Like there's just certain conversations I just feel like you don't want to like poke holes at like older black people because they done like seen some things.
Yeah.
That's what he's probably thinking of. All of those interactions is like, you need to be aware of this power that you have and the consequences that it can bring, primarily because of where we are located. That's not the values Lestat is really teaching Claudia at all, really.
The more that you talk about it and when I think about it, the more it actually seems like Louis is more concerned with her being a good person.
Yes.
Because he actually isn't even that concerned with the fact that she is eating
vampire.
humans.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm going to let you do you. However, I just want you to have like some morals and ethics, just whatever type of person you choose to be.
Right.
Whereas Lestat is more trying to teach her to be a good vampire.
Yes. I think we felt bad for Claudia in that moment where it's like, we are seeing that she cared for someone. I think Lestat is saying, listen, I have been doing this for a long time and I'm telling y'all, these short-term fixes, they don't last. Louis trying to buy this club. Right?
He's telling them you need to detach.
Yeah, and I think he's saying you need to detach because if you consistently go through this loop of trying to find these connections with humans, you are going to torment yourself.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems like Lestat is saying this from experience.
Yeah, we need some flashbacks on Lestat.
I think we'll get it because I'll get to that later on. I know like some of it can sort of seem like good angel, bad angel, like, or at least to a general sense. But I genuinely do think like Lestat is trying to say like what is best for these people. Like he talks to Louis in that previous episode is like, you out behind the back eating a dog and rats. Like I'm sorry. It does sound kind of crazy when you kind of like think about it. He's like, bro, you're not enjoying any of this. And this is supposed to unlock a moment where you can enjoy some things. And I feel like Lestat is just trying to get them to be like, listen, this is not attainable. It's not sustainable.
But the thing is, Louis has found a way.
He's forcing himself to like these things. And it is possible, but I don't think it's like a binary, like everyone can do what Louis does. I don't know if that's a fair...
That's probably true. I guess it seems to me that the place that Louis has come to in his life, current day Louis, the understanding he's come to is that he is saying, my enjoyment and my pleasure is not worth more than other people's lives.
Yes.
And so I'm not going to allow myself to give into these things at the expense of other people, even if it means I have to sacrifice some of that for myself, which I think is correct.
That's a noble thing. Yeah, that's fair.
What do you think it means, Claudia putting her arm out under the sun? What's going to happen with Claudia?
She is suicidal.
Sorry, it's not funny. It's just the way
I actually don't know why I said it like that. I didn't. You know what?
Hey, I guess that really is all it is.
You know what I think it kind of is? I think you can say this with both Louis and Claudia. I think they both miss a sense of mortality.
Yeah.
To them is what makes life worth living every day. Mm-hmm. Versus with Lestat, he's like, because that anomaly is gone, my possibilities are endless. Mm-hmm. Lestat's like, I can do anything. I can be anyone that I want to be. I can move to a different country. I can build this kind of wealth. I can live extremely carefree.
But we also know even for Lestat that wasn't enough because he went out seeking another person.
Yeah. Lestat is kind of poking fun at Louis and Claudia for trying to find like these like sort of temporary fixes. But in a way though, like them becoming a vampire was also like a temporary fix.
Yeah.
Yes, Lestat, like you got Louis, you did find a companion, but she ain't really working out that well right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's like it was also a temporary fix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it actually did not solve the inner turmoil that you were having. And the same thing with Louis, like you had all of these things that you were conflicted with. You had major identity crises, like with your queerness, with your race, and you're like, if I get this power, I'll be good. It honestly feels like being a vampire is kind of like a pyramid scheme. Like it actually does not solve what you want.
No, because you know what the problem is? What the issue is that like having a perfect body, a body that doesn't age, this immortality, it does not actually strip the people of their actual humanity.
What's
like
inside?
Like that's actually the problem.
Yes.
It's like no matter the state of this person, the relationships are always going to be messy because they still have human emotion.
Exactly.
So you'll never be able to find this perfect fix with another person turning them, whatever. It doesn't matter.
No.
Sure, they are alive for all of eternity now, just like you, but that doesn't guarantee that your relationship is going to be around for all of eternity because you guys still are human in the sense that you have imperfect emotions and imperfect friendships and relationships.
Yeah. What do you think about the reaction Louis has to his sister at the funeral? It seemed like he was very detached from his old family now.
I think that's his coping mechanism.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going on there. I think in a way it's actually him protecting them from him.
Yes.
Because I think he knows I can't allow them to get too close to me, but also just like their emotional well-being. Like he knows like I'm actually incapable of being as present as they need me to be because I literally cannot go out at night. So I need them to detach from me just as much as I need to detach from them.
I was thinking the way Louis' family talks about Lestat, I think they know something is off for sure. I think they know there is something spiritual to an extent. There's something otherworldly.
They for sure know because they're like only somewhat surprised that like they don't be looking older and they don't like.
But what I will say though, I think some of it is like some homophobia kind of.
No, for sure.
Sure.
That's also going on there.
Yeah, it's and that is still kind of true with like religion to this day of like there is an association of like things demonic with homosexuality and whatnot, and I think Louis' family sees these things as like intrinsically tied. I think they know Lestat is like otherworldly, and I think they think the damage that Louis has had is because he's indulged in something that they think is like immoral. Maybe. From both sides.
Okay, the only thing that's making me think maybe not is because like when they had Lestat over for dinner. Remember?
But I don't think they thought that they were partners. I think they thought they were just business partners.
No, I think they had an inkling. I think they've always known about Louis.
Maybe.
I don't know. For sure. What you're saying also makes a lot of sense. I also think too, like just it being set in Louisiana in New Orleans where there already is just kind of like, especially like there's just this lore there about like people even to this day.
I got friends on the other side.
Please. To this day, I have heard Black people say that when they go to New Orleans, they feel different. There's this idea about New Orleans that like it's like a part of the culture. There is this just understanding that like we are coinciding around forces that we don't understand.
Yeah.
So like
That's
it makes sense. It wouldn't be a leap for them to see like there is something else going on
because
here.
Remember Louis' brother when he was like, when the stat's getting into my head, and Louis was like, it's just a trick he knows how to do. At first, I thought that was like a plot hole. Like they like quickly skim over these things to keep it going. But now it's like there's like a general understanding of there is just superstitious things that are just common in that culture, which is New Orleans. Like
that's how I read that too. That's why Louis wasn't immediately like, what?
Yeah. I will say, everybody keep telling us, I can't wait to get to season 2. I'm nervous. Like, what if we've been too hard on Lestat?
Here, listen, this all I'm gonna say. Two things can be true at the same time. We might get a whole other perspective on his story. That's kind of what y'all seem to be hinting at. I still think that all the things we have said about him can still be true.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah, I would agree to that.
And I think that the show, to me, is making it very clear that we are meant to pick up on these racial dynamics. Like, there was a lot of people in our comment section on the video about Lestat being racist that were like, I think that's a stretch. I do think maybe we could amend our language, because I think it is true that I do think he does see like race and racism as like a thing just completely beneath him. I think that's true. I think what we were trying to communicate though is that he's still using those dynamics to his benefit. He sees that they exist amongst humans.
Yes,
he scoffs at them. He thinks it's silly and ridiculous. However, he's still willing to use them to his advantage in his relationship with Louis.
And I'm sorry, I think that that's racist.
Yeah.
Because how is that any different than a politician using racist dog whistle to get racist white people to vote for them? They may not be racist. On an individual level. They may even understand the institutional versions of racism that exist in this country, and they are willing to exploit that for political capital. That makes them racist.
I guess it's like maybe a misunderstanding on the term racist. Like we're not saying that Lestat believes that black people are an inferior race to white people.
No.
We understand that he just believes all races of people are inferior. However, he is not a person who's in the business of trying to refute, though. Like he is in the business of using those realities and those ideas to his benefit.
Yeah, he ain't no abolitionist. He ain't out here.
Oh yeah, and you know what? He was a vampire during slavery too. What was he up to? Oh, he was not in America,
but he was French. And the motherfuckers was racist too.
But their slavery ended like way back.
I ain't giving him no break. I'm sorry. He wasn't no Quaker. Like cut y'all. Like I'm sorry.
Anyways,
I'm locked in. I'm in it. I really
enjoy it. I'm scared for our girl Claudia.
I've seen spoilers for what happens to these characters. That's like one or two. It's just it is a little unavoidable when I'm making the edits online.
Oh no!
I've kind of accepted that as a reality.
Dang, but you hate spoilers more than me.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Lisa told me that the books are insane. She didn't read them. She said she's heard like crazy things like Lestat comes a DJ and stuff like that.
What?
Lestat becomes a DJ.
We'd love to know what you guys think about this episode of Interview with the Vampire. So let us know in the comments below. And with that, we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace.